London, as everyone knows, is a world capital city. There's an awful lot to do, and the Metropolitan Police have
wanaagsan waa la wada wadaagay noloshan intaasay ku dhisan tahay aniga waxbaan naqaana adigaadan aan aqoon
15 years old and older, and I'm using that as an age because 15 has a specific meaning.
Community. They're, in my opinion, Somalian communities.
وأنا نقول السياسة ده هالكلام بعدين نقولون وحركة قبسنا نسير إنه
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته داوديال meel kastoo dunida ka joogtaan kusoo dhawaada barnaamijka arrimaha bulshada oo xilligan si toos idinkaga imaanaya TV-ga caalamiga ah Universal xaruntiisa dhexe magaalada London barnaamijkan ayaa isbuuclaas aad ogtihiin week walbana waxaanu ku soo qaadanaa topigyada aanu isleenahay dadku way daneynayaan ama soo markaas aanu jecelnahay inaanu la fagurno barnaamijkan caawa ayaa ka duwan barnaamijyo fara badan oo halkan aanu ka sameynay labadii sano ee barkii la soo dhaafay kan caawa ayaa waxa uu yahay la dagaalanka waxa loo yaqaano argagixisada iyo diinta islaamka oo inta badan la isku daro dabadeedna wajiye foolxun iyo magacyo foolxun loo bixiyay islaamka iyo diinta uu ka tagay nabiyullaahi maxamed sallallahu alayhi wasallam marka caawa waxaanu doonaynaa arrinta inaanu la fagurno maxaa islaama maxaan islaam ahayn dhibaatada haddan ama cabsida ingiriisku uu ka baqanayo dad Soomaaliyeed inay geystaan intee bay la eg tahay maxaa ka dhaba maxaanse ka dhabahayn lixdii qof oo lagu xiray bishan bilowgeedii magaalada London oo lagu eedeeyay in ay iyagu ururka Al-Shabaab gacan saar lahaayeen ama lacag ay u diri jireen ayaanu ognahay in dawladdu booliisku arrinta inaysan maaragtay inay arrinta xaqiijiyeen inay ahayd inaysan dadkaas wax shuqul ku lahayn laakiin dambiye kale loo hayo taasoo kasabtay in dhaawac weyn uu soo gaaro magaca dadka Soomaaliyeed ee dalkan Ingiriiska ku nool loo arko dad ayagu wax isqarxinaya oo isbaabiinaya dhinaca kalena waxaan ognahay maalin walba inay dad muslimiin isqarxiyaan ama muslim sheeganaya oo ay ku sheegtaan markay isqarxinayaan inay u sameynayaan waxaan ilaahay diintiisa ay tahay jannadana lagu galayo lagu dhawaanayo dadka la dagaalamayna ay yihiin gaalo kii ugu dambeeyay ogeeyeen waxay afartii bishii soo dhaaftay tiyaatarkii Soomaaliya in lagu qarxiyay dad Soomaali oo masaakiin oo waxba galabsan iyo kuwii kale oo ka horeeyay 4 Oktoobar sidoo kale iyo kii hotelkii Shaamo ummad Soomaaliyeed lagu xasuuqay taasoo loogu nisbo sheegtay inay tahay mid ilaahay loogu dhawaanayo haddaba caawa barnaamijkan waxa marti ugu ah ninka ugu sareeya la dagaalanka argagixisada dalka Ingiriiska ciidamada qalabka sida oo asagoo halkan ila fadhiya iyo dad fara badan oo Soomaaliya oo aqoon-yahaniina oo academiga dhinaca diinta iyo dhinaca maadigaaba arday ah community-da la shaqeeya waxyaalo fara badan og dadka community-ga dhibaatada uu qabana ayagu halkan fartiin ka wada xambaarsan waxaanu doonaynaa inaanu fooda darnaa topiga caawaanu ka hadlayno annagoo doonayna insha Allah taala si khiyaarnimo oo hufan oo Soomaalinimo ku jirto islaam ku jiro oo aqoon ku jirto inaanu fooda u darno haddaba marka horeysan iskiin baro martileeda khaaska caawa halkan fadhida Mark, thank you very much. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Abdi.
Could you explain to us what you do and how you do things?
Okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Goldby. I'm a superintendent in the Metropolitan Police Service. I currently work within the Counter-Terrorism Command, and I shall come back to that in a second. But just first of all, a little bit about me. I've been a police officer for over 30 years now, and the vast majority of my time has been spent operational policing, working in different parts of London. Most recently, before I came to my current role, I was working in Brent in northwest London. I'm not an investigator, I'm not a detective, I'm an operational police officer, and because of that I ended up being selected to go and work within the Counter-Terrorism Command. And the reason around that is really twofold. Firstly, there was something called the Prevent Agenda, which I know some of you will be aware of, and it was about how the Metropolitan Police Service would deliver that. And then secondly, but linked in very closely, is how we engage with communities around counter-terrorism. And I'm sure you'll all be aware over the years of different things that have taken place within different communities. And there has been criticism of the police and how we've conveyed those messages to the community. And this is an effort on behalf of the Metropolitan Police Service to make sure that our community engagement actually ensures that counter-terrorism issues are thought through as well. So my role primarily is to manage a number of units whose remit is to deal with community engagement primarily around the counter-terrorism agenda and working with those communities, understanding those communities and trying to meet the needs of the different communities of London.
Thank you very much. You mentioned the word counterterrorism. Often when the Muslim community in Britain hear counterterrorism, it raises eyebrows. What is counterterrorism?
Well, I think to understand what counter-terrorism is, it's worth understanding what terrorism is. And terrorism really is attack by individuals or groups on society with a view to causing terror or fear. So the role of counter-terrorism is to try and stop that from happening. And I think traditionally that's been done through a number of different methods. So through investigating offences, arresting people, convicting people, working with partners, so local authority and health to make sure that our venues and our potential targets are that much more difficult to attack. And you're probably all aware of these kind of issues in the past. But actually more importantly, and the real key to solving terrorism is actually through communities. And I think that just gives me an opportunity very early on just to raise something called the counter-terrorism hotline, 0800 789 321. It's a confidential hotline where members of the community can actually phone in with information and intelligence where they see or they've got a concern about somebody within their community. So the real issue today, I think, is around how communities actually work with police, work with other agencies to try and make our communities safer for all of us. Because at the end of the day, it's not just police who are victims of terrorism, it's communities who are victims of terrorism. It's everybody. If you look at the names of the people who were killed back in July 2005, you will see every nationality under the sun is represented in those people that were killed. Therefore, it's really important that every section of society, every community understands that they have a role to play. They have a role to play in what they see, they have a role to play in what they hear, and part of that role is to either challenge that person where it's extremist, and actually when it gets to the point where you think offences are going to be committed or you've got real concerns, to inform the police, either through the anti-terrorist hotline or through your local safer neighbourhood teams or your local community officers. You know, the choice is yours, but it is about communities working with police to solve terrorism.
Okay. Often we hear young black men, young Muslim men are being targeted. And this does not help community cohesion because the community says deliberately your officers are targeting a young Muslim man who just minding their own business, going to the mosque, praying, and then going to work. You're profiling them and you're calling them terrorists when they just minding their own business.
Okay, if we're talking about the terrorism agenda and looking at different individuals and different groups, we don't profile, we don't seek to stigmatise. The prevent agenda, and let's deal with that one now, the prevent agenda is a supportive mechanism. It's not about criminalising people, it's about trying to support individuals before they go on to commit any criminal offences. And I'll give you an example. If you see, whether it's your son or your daughter or a neighbour's child, if you see somebody who you know is getting involved in gangs and might be going out to commit crime, you probably speak to them, or you probably speak to their parents. You do something about it. And actually, terrorism is a crime, exactly the same, and we have those same responsibilities and obligations to support those individuals. It's not about reporting it to police so that we arrest them. The vast majority of the work that we do is not about arresting people, it's about supporting individuals. We're not there to arrest people committing terrorism. That's not my job. My job is to engage with the communities to stop those individuals from going on and committing various acts of terrorism. And there are a number of different methods that takes, and actually they're very much all community-based. All we really do is facilitate, we coordinate, but the vast majority of it is actually managed by the community, by our partners in the health or local authorities, through third-party intervention providers who are community individuals within your communities. So it's very much around, if you see something, if you see you've got people within your community you've got concerns around terrorism, then yes, you may want to report to the police, but it's not reporting them in respect of a criminal matter. It's actually doing it in a way so that we can ensure the right supportive measures are put in place to support that individual so that they don't commit a crime.
Okay, thank you very much. Just before we have questions from the audience, what is the current level, what is the threat level at this moment in time?
I'm going to cheat here because I wanted to make sure I got the exact correct wording, so I've written it on the back of the poster. The current threat level is substantial, which means that an attack is a strong possibility. Now that was reduced from last year, so that's not at the highest level, but it's not at the lowest level either. So I think it's all about us being vigilant, being alert, and if we've seen things and we've got concerns, as I've said, report it through the terrorist hotline or in through your local police. So it is about us all being vigilant because we all have the potential to be a victim of a terrorist attack, all of us.
Okay. One very important point that I would like to put to you is that we often hear, even the Theresa May, your boss, said that she's worried about Al-Shabaab attacking here. Where does she get her evidence? Do you know?
I wouldn't seek to speak for Theresa May, who's the Home Secretary. And I think, but I think there is clear evidence that Al-Shabaab, well, certainly they're active in Somalia, as we know, and there is probably clear evidence that they're active in this country as well, primarily around fundraising and getting support. I'm not sure what the evidence is. I'm not an intelligence expert, so I don't know what the intelligence is to say they might be doing something else over here. But I've no doubt she's got access to further information which I don't have. But there is clear evidence that Al-Shabaab are active in this country, but that is mainly, from what we understand, from what I understand, around fundraising issues and getting support, and maybe even taking family and friends of yours back to Somalia to engage in fighting in the civil war that's taking place. So that is how I see Al-Shabaab currently in the UK, but that isn't to say that that won't change at some point, either for good or for worse.
Okay, thanks very much. Now, if I come to you, to the audience, we have Somali Diaspora Chairman Mohammed Ilmi here. And Mohammed, welcome to the program and thanks for coming.
Yeah, okay, sure. First, we would like to thanks particular Mac, who really give your own time to meet the community and talk what your thoughts regards, about security issue and what's your department feeling, how you could engage the wider community of Somalia, especially in London. And we understand that ahead there is a massive, as we're aware that there is a London Olympics ahead. And what we wanted from you is that there's two things I want to put across, which is number one, how do you want in your department to work this wider community? I think you know that the poll ahead suggesting Guardians before the London mayor's elections, they quoted that 189,000 are eligible to vote. The vote happened already in London, which they send it to the Whitehall office to Bronson. But I think in that number, highly number, how do you think that your department are willing to engage to this community and how you want them to close? That's number one. And the other issue, which is very important, which I think your colleague, when we met in Scotland Yard, and they invite the opinion leaders, and including myself, and we have met twice, 2nd May and 23rd May, yeah. And we welcome that really, and how they're engaging really the community, and following the arrest happened in past month. But I think we understand that there is a different issue that has been highlighted London newspapers. I think in the first place they wrote that Homeland Department Security in America are done it operation together with the Scotland Yard. And in that perspective now, what our position we worry now is, in America now, they are fully engaging with the Scotland Yard in terms of all those actives. So what in your position, what happened to in Minnesota, in America, years back, which caused when they closed all the Hawala transfer money, and that ended up that Somali community in Minnesota in America, they suffer a lot because there's a larger number over there trying to send their money back home, and the Somali community back home, the independent and the diaspora, to sending money and to feed their family. So are you now in the position, the second question, that are you following up, or are you making a decision to happen, or maybe to close again some Hawala that they're using? Because we understand that in the first place they said that they said firstly terrorism attack was what you arrested, but again when we met on last week, Andy and his team, they provide that there's no evidence that they are not terrorists, but now they are arrested in money laundering. Do you think that it will be a possibility link that will consider in your department, you're heading, that it might close some hawala, end up in the same way that happened in America?
Okay, Mohammed, thank you. Mark.
Thank you, Mohammed. That's two very interesting questions, and I think we could probably spend the whole of the programme trying to answer those, so I shall try and keep the points brief. I think I've seen it in two questions, one about the hawala and one about the engagement with the Somali community, if that's fair. Let me deal with the second one first. I think it's clear, I don't know the full ins and outs of what took place in America and why they closed those venues down. The recent arrests in London were following an intelligence-led operation where a number of people were arrested. They've been charged with non-terrorist offences, as you know, and have been off to court. We await to see what happens and the outcome of that, and obviously I wouldn't comment any further at this stage. What I would say about money transfers, no, we wouldn't seek to stop you. I mean, we're very aware that, you know, within the Somali community, to send money back to Somalia and to family in other parts of the world is part of your day-to-day activity. It's something that you do. It's part of the reasons perhaps why you work so hard and so long to earn the money to support family in other parts of the world. So we don't seek to stop that, and we've got no intention of stopping that. What I would say, though, is I would encourage people to just think carefully about the methods that they're using and to make sure they're using legitimate money transfer venues, that they can account for the money that they've got. And I think, without going into lots of detail, I think the individuals who were arrested weren't really able to account for the money they had. And I would say legitimate people would be able to do so. You know, even if you ever got asked a question, you would be able to answer it. Those individuals perhaps weren't. So we're not seeking to stop it. It's part of your community. We would seek to encourage you to do it, but to do it in a safe way, to look at the way you give money and the way you send money back to your own country, and to make sure you use legitimate money transfer venues. And I know there's a gentleman sitting next to you who knows very much about that, far more than I do. But we wouldn't seek to stop that at all. If I just go back to, you know, I think the gist is, how do we want to, or do we want to engage with the Somali community around terrorism-related matters? I think the answer is yes. And I think the example regarding these arrests that took place in the last couple of weeks shows that actually we took the time to actually say to the Somali community, come in and talk to us about it and we'll explain to you what's happened. So the whole idea was that you could get your own messages out. You could actually understand and ask the investigator. I'm not the investigator, but you've had the chance to actually ask the investigator what's happened, why have things happened. And I think that's a good example of how we're looking to work with the Somali community. And what I would say is it's not just about police. I mean, we work in partnership with a number of other agencies, as I've said, local authority colleagues, education, health. A lot of this work is often done in partnership, so it's not just about what the police do. But there are a number of other examples. There's projects that we're involved in around Somali women. There's projects we're involved in with Somali youth. There's a project, I think, in Brent, which is taking place now, which is about getting access to services, and it's about key individuals in the community who've come together. And the whole idea is that they will be a resource for Somali community to actually gain access to those services that are offered locally through the local authority, through health, through education. And that's been, it's not police who do the work, but it's certainly police who've helped to coordinate it and drive it to actually make sure it's happened. So I don't want us to take the credit for it in that sense, but certainly we're there pushing it along, encouraging people to actually play their part to support the Somali community. So I think there's a number of good examples, and what I would say is I'm only one small part of the Metropolitan Police Service. You know, you all live in boroughs, you all live in local authority wards, you all have your local police officers who will be engaging with the Somali community as well. It's opportunities for you all and for us all to engage with what I will say is still an emerging community. It's still a fairly new community in the UK. It's not perhaps as well coordinated as some other communities, and that takes time. You know, look at some of the more established communities in the UK, and it's very well established. With the Somali community, you're spread out all the way across London and across the UK. And over time you will get better at those, you know, engaging together. You will get better at accessing services and accessing the things that are out there which everybody else has access to. So, and we're just part of that. You know, this opportunity now to ask me questions, I think, is part of that. And the chance that you had to go to New Scotland Yard is part of that as well. And I think that's a real positive step that we're showing to say, yes, we do want to engage with you. You're a vitally important community, as every community in London is, and we want to make sure that we've got an understanding of your needs and that you also understand ours as well.
Excellent. If I come to Sheikh Ibrahim for a minute, if anyone got a question, please raise your hand and then I'll give you the microphone. Sheikh Ibrahim, you are a Muslim scholar and an active member of the community and based in North London. You heard what the officer said, you heard Mohammed, and you know how things are at the moment. How can the Somali community work with the police and at the same time know who we are and our rights? Because often you hear the police do this and police that. There's also of allegations. Sometimes it's hard to verify, and sometimes there's some legitimate concerns. What can we do as a Somali community to work with the police and be safe in this country? Because we're the last people in this country who will pick up gun or fire or anything like that because of the experience we have of the war. We were given shelter, we were given education, we were given all sorts of things that we don't have. How can we work with this gentleman and his colleagues?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allah say, when someone لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم آيات مركا أن تبروهم وتقصدوا إليهم إن الله يحب المقصدين. That is ayah talking about if someone not make done any problem to you or any harm to you, and you should make أن تبروهم. That's mean أن تبروهم when someone deserves something, it is his right, you should give him. But أن تبروهم is someone what is not deserve it, you make favor, you make something is not his right. That is, so you should give him. So the UK community and UK government kindly help the Somali community. They give everything, they give education, they welcome it when they fire and everything. So the most Somali community, they should cooperate with them, they should work with them, they should, they must work with them. But what is the very sad when what is some, for the young people like that is, they say the Muslim young people. What is the Islam is not any related this action. Islam is the religion of the mercy, is the religion of the peace. For example, it's not only for the mankind, for the human, but for the animal, for the trees, for everything. The Prophet, when we say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Prophet, he say one lady went to the hellfire for one cat. She kept it, that cat, and she didn't feed it. And she didn't lift to get the food around. She kept it and she died. For that cat, she went to the hellfire. The other hadith tell us when man go to the Jannah, to the paradise, for the dog which is going to die very hungry and going to die, and he hasn't got any facility, and he go to where is the water, and he got his socks to go to the and he bring the water and rescue that and the dog. So the Muslim is like that, and a hadith is say الناس عيال الله فأحبهم حديثكم يعني the people for the Prophet said all the human, the children of the God, any Allah is like them who help them. The Islam is mercy, is help and mercy and very kind. So what that's kind is for the someone who killing himself or someone who do, there is no related to the Islam. And all the hadith say anyone who kill himself.
That's suicide bomb we talk about here.
Yeah, suicide bomb. If he kill himself for any, for a weapon, for and mountain, any kind, he will go to the hellfire forever. And no
Okay,
coming
Sheikh
back.
Ibrahim, thank you very much. I'll stop you right there because of the time. And the gentleman right behind you. Thank you, Sheikh Ibrahim.
Assalamu alaikum. Mohammed from London Somali Youth Forum. I am the appointed chairman at the moment. First of all, as a chair, I would like to, obviously, as a public servant myself, obviously applaud the work of the police itself, because I see it in my own eyes, and our safety depends on that. What I would like to also confirm is that, as stated before, in Islam, there's no relationship between terrorism and Islam. What we've seen on the ground is political opponents and political factions using Islam as a mechanism to get to their ends. And so the beauty of Islam is still there, but it's a shame that obviously the media has somehow fragmented the attitudes among the communities and stereotyped this community itself in that way. But there are two critical points that I would like to mention on this issue. First is, has the government, has the police service really got to the root cause of terrorism itself? Because the frustration I hear from the youth across London and across debates is that terrorism itself has political ends, and there is a relationship between terrorism and foreign policy. We've witnessed in the last 5 years that there's been 3 wars in Islamic countries, and obviously the toll of people dying is immense. But there is something that's missing from the political policy making, is whether they actually understand Muslims themselves.
Okay.
Because what I would like to is from the moment a Muslim is born, he's trained to think about his brother and sister, whatever they are. Consciously, they're trained in that way practically. So the issue is, if foreign policy decisions have been made, how much is the government considering the unintended consequences of that particular decision? That's one question. The other question is, I've read the Rusi report recently that came out in April, and I've also looked at the Sun, who have reported the 7 people that were arrested. Obviously, the first thoughts was knee-jerk reactions, stereotyping, but now we know the matter has involved money laundering. But the key issue is policy making being made out of fear and knee-jerk reactions, because that's what we as youth are concerned about. Thank you very much.
Okay. Just before I give before Mike answers your questions, guys, because of the limitation of the time, can we just have each person 1 minute and put your question forward, and then we move on, so a lot of people can have a say. Mohammed, I'll come to you. Mike, you heard the 2 gentlemen.
Okay, I'm not really sure which point to answer or not, to be honest.
Okay.
I think the issue around foreign policy is not one that I would necessarily want to get drawn on personally, but I have no doubts that there are lots of different things that motivate different people at different times, and that would be one of them, as a number of other things would be. I think lots of things have been said by the 2 of you, which I would support, about Islam being a religion of peace, and I would agree with that. But I think most religions probably are as well. But I think Islam, like every other religion, will have people within it who try to take advantage. And it might only be a small number of people, but there will be people within it. And I think what we mustn't lose sight of is the fact that there are people who would seek to radicalise, people who are extreme, don't quite see Islam in the same way that what could be termed the mainstream view. And they see Islam in a different way. And I'm not going to be standing up here to say who's right and who's wrong, because I can't do that. But what I would say, the effects of that difference is that they try and get people to get involved in terrorism. They do try and get people to radicalise them and to get them to be extreme in the way that they see Islam. Now, that is a challenge for all of us. I think you asked the question, has terrorism been understood and stopped? Well, the answer is no, because I wouldn't have a job if it had. because that's why we're here, because it's clearly still an issue. It's an issue not just in Islam, it's an issue in all religions, and you look in other parts of the world. In America, you've got some real right-wing fundamentalist Christians. And you look in India, there's some extremist Sikhs. There are extremists in lots of different religions. So it's not just Islam that has this particular issue. But there are people within your community who are radicalising your children, who are seeking to get your children to get involved in terrorism, that will get your children and your sons and your daughters to go overseas maybe and take part in fighting in Somalia. And some of those people will die. And the challenge is for all of us, how do we work together to actually stop that from happening? Recognising where Islam is, but also recognising that there are a group of people who have a different take on Islam to perhaps the mainstream view. And it's those individuals, those radicalisers, those extremists that we have to work together to solve. And I can tell you now, the police can't solve it on their own. Okay? Virtually every single counter-terrorism issue that has ever been resolved is because community people come forward and tell us things. So communities solve terrorism, not police. We just gather up what you tell us and we actually go out and do whatever needs to be done. It's the communities who see things. It's the communities who can stop it. It's the communities who can protect themselves.
Okay, Mohammed, I'll come back to you. The gentleman at the back, and then Mohammed here front.
Ahmed, a member of Wadhan for Somali community. First of all, I'd like to say, Somalis, they are not terrorism. If you look back at the history, these terrorism things just became allied 5-6 years ago. 5-6 years ago. What I would like to say to you that the young Muslim Somalis who grown up in this country, most of them, they grown up in a very bad neighborhood. They've been bullied in their school. What I'd like to ask you that to prevent those, young Somalis, to prevent them to commit a crime or to join them in terrorism, what kind of help that the police or the other government bodies they offer it? On my opinion, we would like to work with the police and educate our young children to teach them. I understand there are some young Somalis, we hear about from the media, come from America, United Kingdom, joining back home to fight or join the terrorism. Well, I'd like to ask you that, as a police officer, to prevent these things, not happen. What kind of help that you're going to offer for these children?
Okay, Mike, just 1 second. Thank you very much. Guys, for a second time, can you just make it as short as possible so we can give everyone a chance? Because there's no point some people speaking too long and others not having a chance. Keep it short and precise. Mike, let's take another question and then you can answer it. Mohammed here. Oh, okay. If you could stand up. And then Mohammed's next.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Marian and pleased to have met you, the officer. One thing I want to say is, how will you make sure for upcoming Olympics, the security, how will you make sure? And what have you done as an officer for the last couple of years? And what would you give advice to young Somalis to stay out of troubles?
Okay, thank you. Mike, over to you, sir.
Okay, I'll give you advice. Stay out of trouble. That's the best advice I can give them. Just trying to link back through to some of those questions. I think there's some links between young Somalis and the question the gentleman asked around what support is there. There's a dilemma for Somali community, as there is for lots of other communities in London, which is, how do your youth grow up, and do they grow up seeing themselves as British? Do they see themselves as Somali? Do they see themselves as a Muslim? There are all these different challenges, and within Britain, that's a real dilemma for the youth to actually try and get their head around and to understand. So the first thing I think we need to recognise is actually it's a real difficult challenge for young Somalis, as it is for a number of other youngsters in different communities. I think there's some real issues around how the community, though, does support its youngsters. And I think I'll go back to a point I mentioned earlier, which is actually how organised are you as a community to actually get the service and to get access to the service and the services that are out there through the local authorities, through the youth services, through the outreach workers. It may be that more work needs to be done within the Somalian community to actually understand those better, so that you can actually get better access into those services to actually support your children. So I think in some respects it's a wider community issue. It's about how those services are accessed and how your youngsters understand how they can make use of them. I think there are some real issues around, I think the point was made around where they are. They're in the kind of neighbourhoods that some of you are in, the kind of things that happen at school. You know, I can't do a lot about that right here, right now, but that's more of a government-based issue. But I certainly think as a community you need to start asking for more, you need to start demanding more, but you need to be more organised to ask for those things. And I think once you're more organised, you can start putting more challenges into the government, to the local authorities, to the police, saying we want more, we want more, we want more. We'll give back, but we actually want more from you. Okay. I think just quickly on the Olympics, the Olympics isn't a security event, the Olympics is a sporting event. And as such, I hope you, like I, am looking forward to the Olympics. It's a fantastic opportunity to have it right here in London, just down the road from where we are here in Waltham Forest. This build-up to it and the events are fantastic, but in 100 plus days it'll all be over. And so there is a lot of security has gone into that, and a lot of work has been done to make sure it's a safe and enjoyable games. But I also think it's important to recognise in 100 plus days it will be over. And we have to get back to day-to-day living, and the issues which you've just raised are the real key issues that we need to address. Lots of money for the Olympics, rightly so, because it's a big event for the country. But actually we need to make sure, even in these days of austerity, that there is funding directed to the areas where it's needed, which is to support the youth. And I don't want to be a spokesperson for the government, but I know they've just announced some money in their budget around getting children either back into further education after school or into some kind of employment or learning. So I think maybe that's a good way of actually making sure your youth are actually engaged in that and understand that's an opportunity for them. And they're the kind of opportunities I think I'm talking about, where I'm saying you need to understand, you need to be organised so that you can access those services for yourselves and your communities.
Okay, thank you. Can we have Mohammed and then Mohammed in the third row? Mohammed, over to you. Okay.
Thank you very much. Command Superintendent, welcome and thanks for your time. Can I also thank Universal TV and Abtafit for your wonderful programs. I hear what you have said and I fully appreciate the points that you're making. And I'm also aware that some of the questions that we are asking is beyond your capability. My question really is towards about the activity that you're taking. And I commend the police, the good work that you are doing. But at the same time, we don't have to shy away from the reality. The reality is there is the threat there, whether it's from our Somali members or whether it's from other members. And we Somalis are fearful as any other person to be exposed to any harm of any kind. So we are there with the government and with the police services. But at the same time, the reality is that the systems that are in place now of tackling counterterrorism against our community seems to be way beyond, and there's disproportionate number of our young people who have been harassed, quite rightly maybe, but wrongly maybe at the same time. But the problem is when our young people are being arrested by your officers, they manhandle them, allegedly. We don't know about the facts of it. But at the same time, there are constant harassment of continuity, where people who have been arrested, taken to courts, not found guilty, but yet harassed. And I think whilst we fully support the system in place and fully support the measures that you're taking, and I must say, I don't want to repeat what my colleague said, but we're fully with you and we're fully going to support you in any way that we can. But at the same time, we need to be treated equally like any other communities. And that harassment against our young people and our community must stop. And that is something I think you need to relate to your officers. And the other point I think which has been mentioned is the foreign policy measures. We are fully aware that the issues in Northern Ireland was the British troops present in Ireland. In Iraq, there was the same thing that happened. In Somalia, what took all our young people in that end was the invasion of Ethiopia. And now probably the next phase will be the invasion of Kenya. So we don't know, and mistakes have been made all the time. That is something that needs to be changed, and that needs to be tackled immediately. But in terms of our community, we are fully ready to assist to the best of our ability, but we need to be treated equally like any other citizens here and not be mistreated and discriminated against by the anti-terror police service.
Okay, thank you. Can we have Mohammed at the back, please?
Good evening. My name is Mohammed Hassan. I'd just like to make a few comments. I wouldn't make it too long, just to give other people also the chance. I was slightly concerned about your tone in terms of how organized the Somali community is. Well, in fact, we have evolved. It's not perfect. We've got a long way to go, but we have evolved, and there is good progression in that sense. And this tone sounds very familiar. It has become a way to divide and rule the community, because there were very good examples of organizations who work very well with the external agencies and the government as well. But when the discussions on the table come and the communities have different ideas of how to engage with the authorities, then it slowly diminishes. And what the authorities will do is they will look for other groups who will deliver the message. And that is a very serious point. That's how you break the community. And it's not good for the authorities, and it's not good for the community. So that needs to be looked at very clearly. So integration, if we agree that integration is a two-way process, then we also agree that the authorities have a long way to go at the same time. It's about understanding each other. We as Somalis have got to do our homework, need to engage with one another, but equally, the authorities and the external agencies need to do their bit. In fact, they need to do a bit more than just, coming and lecturing us about how we should work together. I think we have had these discussions for so long, and I'm confident in saying that, we've passed that stage. We've got second and third generation Somalis growing up in this country. And one last point, the term terrorism has become synonymous to being Somali. And that's a very dangerous part at the same time. We consider ourselves British citizens, but we don't feel that we are treated that way. I speak to a lot of young people. In fact, I do my whole research on young people. And the amount of frustration, I can't put it in words. It is really terrible. And it's incumbent to all of us to understand what the root causes are of what these young people are going through in order to be effective. Now, one last point. You're speaking about services being available. Now, in the UK, there are so many services available, but what is the crucial factor is whether they are accessible. Accessing services is where the problem lies. If you look at the nuclear Somali families, they suffer from structural policy failures within the councils in terms of housing, overcrowding, and that has a knock-on effect on the family. Young males are pushed out of their houses because they share a room with 3 sisters, and these are common cases. We need to be seriously looking at these issues, and these are the structural issues that need to be tackled. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Some heavy points there.
There is.
Deal with this, gentlemen.
I'll have to do my best to try and deal with them. I mean, first of all, didn't mean to cause offence if I've suggested that you're not organised. I accept that you are, but I think the point that you make is there's more to be done. But I think that applies to us as well, and I think the purpose of me being here today is not just to answer your questions, which I think is important, but for me to listen to the comments that you've made, both of you, and the rest of you as well, but you two in particular. I think are really key points for me to listen to as well and take away. Police officers, we're not perfect. We're human beings, same as everybody else. We make mistakes. And I think you opened your question with saying you hear stories of things, and I hear stories of things too, and sometimes they're true and sometimes they won't be true. But no doubt there is more work for us to do in the way we deal with everybody that we engage with, not just the Somali community, but obviously that's the community that you understand, and that's where you see the issues. So I think that's perhaps right. So I think there's some real learning for us as well around that. I'm not sure if you're talking about counter-terrorism in particular or police engagement with communities specifically. But I do think on both sides there's some further learning to be had. And sorry, the gentleman at the back, I know you made lots of points. Is there anything I haven't picked up on yet? Is there anything further you asked or that I haven't answered?
Well, it's just about the fact that we have been working with the authorities for a very long time. But because
the access issue.
Yes, we had, but also it's about engagement.
Yeah.
So there is an understanding of how we sort of embrace certain policies which are critical for the government as well as for the community. But when we have got our own ideas of how to implement them, because we know our community better than the authorities to a certain level, I think there is we can never reach a common consensus.
Okay.
And that's a problem. This cannot go through just one channel. There should be a mutual consensus in terms of policy making if the government is very serious about it. Now, and that would allow officers like yourselves to break into the community and build this crucial trusting relationships with the community. Without that, it would never happen.
Okay. I think I'll go back, because I think you summed up before about access, and I think everybody nodded at the point you said access to those services. I think that's a really key point. I talked earlier about the pilot project that's running on Brent, about getting access into services and understanding what's happening. Certainly for me that is a step in the right direction, but clearly it's not enough. But I think the message I'm getting from you today is that this needs to be looked at across both police and other authorities, to actually how do we make those services accessible to you as a community, and how do we make sure it's accessible in a way that actually delivers within your community in a way that you understand. So certainly I'm not arguing that point. I certainly think that's a learning point for me, so thank you for that.
Okay, thank you very much. Young lady in the middle.
One thing, just to add on to what everybody said, one concern that we have is branding issue. When we hear counter-terrorism, often we assume it's strictly related to the Muslim community, and further on it goes on, it relates to the Somali community. Regarding to the arrests that were made, I think the police should have been more sensitive and considered how they, when approached, how they took that project and dealt with those people. Because ultimately it's the whole branding element to it. Now that we found out they've been charged with money laundering, which is, in comparison to terrorism, it's far-fetched. When you hear terrorism, not only the Somali community suffer, along with all Muslims, however, in terms of Somalis, we are a small community, and terrorism, it's a major factor to us right now, being linked to the July 7 bombings, when some of the terrorists were not Somalis but claiming to be Somalis. However, it was quick to be judged and said, oh, it was Somali terrorists, Somali people were involved. But when it came in light that they were not Somalis, no one actually, the police did not make an attempt to correct the error. Vice versa. Recently, when the arrest happened, it was arrest relating to money laundering, and it was arrest relating to counter-terrorism. However, when the investigation happened and we found out that it was just money laundering, the police did not do a press release to correct themselves and to address the community, to put their hands up and say it was a mistake. It wasn't linked to terrorism, however, it's money laundering, and those individuals are being dealt with just like any other individuals in society. So our concern is the police, the Metropolitan Police, or the government in the UK should be more sensitive to the way they deal with our community in relation to the whole branding, because actions speak louder than words. What is said goes far beyond what is actually the truth.
Okay, so if I could just come back.
Link to that point.
Yeah, go on.
Mark, just with this is in relation to what the lady said. When you carried out those raids, or your office carried those raids, obviously there must be some lessons that you guys did learn from the Lawrence inquiry, which is consulting the community, but also risk assessment and impact management. Was that done at the time to make sure that the impact of the community is limited? Or did you just get the order from the Americans as usual and then did it what they wanted you to do?
Okay, can I come in at that point before we ask any more? I would like to try and stop. Okay, what I would say is that first of all, I understand the concerns that the ladies raise, and I think it's right that we consider the way we link terrorism to Somali community. I think that's a really important message. A lot of the other bits I would perhaps have some disagreement around. What I would say is yes, we were conscious of the community around it. We did go out and do messaging in the community. Bear in mind, not all of it was in London as well. Not all of those arrests were in London. And in fact, some of you here were in a community group where actually they were given briefings around those arrests and actually have been updated subsequently regarding those arrests. I think the press release that went out when they were charged did say that they've been charged with money laundering offences. But what I would say is, and those who've been to the group will know, that there are ongoing investigations and they continue. So this may not be the end of it. I'm not the investigator. It may not be the end of it. There may be more to this than we already know. But what I would say is, yes, we're very conscious of the effect on the community. You know, the fact that I'm here today is part of it because one of the people in that group asked, say, well, why don't you go on the television and explain what you did? We'd already discussed this as an option, so this was a good opportunity to do it now. So we're not hiding away. We're certainly aware of the impact that we have on any community when we make arrests. And certainly when we're making arrests within a specific community, that plays out very, very big around that community, around the whole country, and probably beyond the UK borders as well. But at the end of the day, you know, the Metropolitan Police are there to prevent crime and detect crime. And if we've got evidence that people are committing crime, then we will take action, and we're obliged to do so. And hopefully we'll be doing that with the support of the community. I think what you're saying is we need to make sure we get our messaging right and our communications to you right around it. And certainly I don't think we did a bad job, but maybe we can do a better job next time. I accept that. Yeah. Hopefully we can do a better job next time to make sure we understand better and put out some clearer messages to you.
Excellent, thanks, Mark. The young lady on the pink top, yeah. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amina Osman, and I'm a community representative. I work with the community. I've been working with the community for about 12 years. Mine is just a suggestion, and it's also a comment, because from my experience, I've got young people as well. My eldest is 18, the youngest is 16, so I've got teenage children, and I've worked with them as well. So my point is, it's about prevention. It's not about cure, because for us, it's being able to access the surface that is within. The notion that the Somali community is not organized, I think, is not 100% true, because Somali people have got much more grassroots organization than any community I know, because I know this because we apply for funding, and when we apply for funding, we're often told by the funders that there are a lot of Somali groups. To me, that is not a bad thing. It's actually a very, very good thing, and it does show that we are organized, and it does show that we know we have difficulties and we want to deal with it. So that notion is actually not true. The other point I want to make is that it's not always about money. It's about volunteering, and it's about helping, and it's about understanding. Because the difficulties we face most of the time is that the tenant hall next door is not open to us. When another person asks for that tenant hall, they get it. We don't get it. And we want to work with our young people, make some projects with them. It's not always about money. The schools are not open on Saturdays. They're not open after school at 6, maybe from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. That would have helped.
Sister, if you don't mind, time limit ka jira and some gare. Ninkaadan beenu dhib please microphone.
I wanted to say that is that we are organized, and we want to work together, and we want to work with the police force and any other person who wants to work with us. We just don't have the recognition from the community or from major organizations that are supposed to work with the Somali community. That's all I want to say.
Thanks, Mark, to be here with us tonight. Just going to on 3 points. One is young Somali, they don't feel that they're part of the society. Identity of the young Somalis, although they're born and grow up in this country, but still they're feeling that they're not part of the society. That's the one thing. The other thing is there's the appeal from the Al-Shabaab in Somalia, encourage young people to join them, which is nothing you guys have been done to what they call the early intervention and prevention program is not there for the communities. The third thing is the young people are watching on the TV every single night on what's going on their brothers and sisters in Iraq, Afghanistan, and others in other Muslim countries. So what we need on here is this Somali community trust the police? Is he, what do you call, because I'm in the community, still feeling they are not really confident to work with the police. So we need to look how are we going to build the relationship with the police and the community. Start from that point, then move into intervention and in what do you call prevention and early intervention program, and then move to what do you call the integration young people to integration on the job opportunity education program. So let me work together. No label to the Somalis community. They are what you call extremist, radical groups. So, I mean, that's my suggestion.
Okay, Mark, I'll come to you. Can we have this gentleman, Sheikh Ali, first, and then Mark, you can sort of deal with them in that way. And I'll come to you, Sheikh.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ali Sheikh, or either way, Sheikh Ali. Thanks to all of you, especially to the Universal team and Mark. I'm not a questioner. I'm not a questioner, man. I'll say something regarding the question asked earlier by Abdi to the Sheikh, Sheikh Ibrahim. The question was how Somalis can we teach, can we educate our children in order for them to keep good birth, not to go astray, not to do something wrong. And the other thing is how we're gonna tell them, how we're gonna teach them the reality that the Muslim is not or the Islam itself, the religion, is not a terrorist or it's not a hatred religion. My opinion is I'll sort it in two different things. One thing is how our people, our people want to educate our children, and how the government, the police, are gonna do something about what's happening within the society, because we know for fact, and earlier the officer said earlier on, there's clear evidence that the Shabaab group are operating within the country, and not only doing a fundraising, but they also, they teach and do, they're taking them, they're manipulating, they do whatever, they teach them and they take them back home to take part in the fight. So the thing is, the children, like the Somalis, in fact, Somali people are religious people. We love our religion. And these infidels, the radicals people, they take this advantage of our people. Our people, when they come here, they know that they're Muslim, so they want to go to the mosque to seek who can teach their children to teach something. So when they took the children to mosque, who's there? Who's in there?
Ali, can I just stop you there?
Yeah.
When you say infidels, who are you referring to?
Radicals or infidels, what I mean when I say the word is those who are teaching children to kill themselves as well as others.
Oh, I got you.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay, have you done?
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
you have 30 seconds. Carry on.
Okay. What I'd say is, I'll talk to Somali people first, and second, I'll say something to the police officer. The Somalis, we need to know what our children being taught.
Right.
We need to go to the mosque. We need to go to the madrasa. We need to go everywhere they go. We need to find out what they are teaching. This what they're being taught.
And who's teaching?
And who's teaching, and what they're taking from there. We need to know what's going on there.
Okay.
So if we know something, we can take them, we can stop something before it happens.
Intervention.
And the government, the officer said earlier on, he or the government knows, and they got clear evidence that the operation is going on within the country here. And as far as I know, the UK government is capable to know everything, every bit and piece happens in the country. They can stop immediately if they want to stop. Why do they look and wait for them to do such a thing and then come back later on to blame our people and our religion?
Okay, thank you very much. We have another 10 more minutes, so those people who haven't asked questions, I'll come to you. I'll give you first preference, and then if anyone else wants to come back, I'll give it to you. Mike.
I should try and answer all three of those. First of all, to this gentleman here, I really don't think any government in the UK knows everything that's going on, which I think is a good thing, because I don't think we'd want them to. But just to pick up on some of the other points that were raised by the lady and the gentleman, I think they were quite linked, and I think the lady started off by talking about prevention rather than cure, and I would agree with that 100%. And I think I started off by saying the work that my team do is to try and work with communities to actually stop people getting drawn into terrorism, because that's the topic today. It's stopping people getting drawn into terrorism. And if we can prevent the youngsters being drawn into things, that is the best thing that any of us can do, rather than once they've done it, arrest them and lock them up. That's almost a failing, if you're asking me. If we can get in early on and do it, then I think that's what we need to do. And I think the gentleman there described exactly, I think, how that process should operate, and that is about that partnership working, that looking at interventions when we identify, or when you identify, because you're the ones who see your children, who see your family, who see your friends. You're the ones who'll see them. We won't see them. If you've got concerns, you need to think about how you're going to tackle that. Who are you going to report that to? And when I say report it, it's not about coming to us and saying, this person's a criminal. It's about saying, can you help us? This guy needs some support. And that's what we do. We're not looking to make arrests around these things. We're looking to provide support so we can divert them away from criminality, we can divert them away from terrorism, and actually get them on a road where they can actually go and live a fulfilling life and be part of the wider community. So I think the gentleman there is spot on in the points he made.
Just a quick question before we go back to the audience. I don't know if you know anything about this particular case. And there was a group of young Somalis in Camden, and they were asked by the secret services to become spies for the police, or they will be locked up. Is that something routine that you guys do?
No, it's not something routine that we do. I have heard this before as a bit of a rumour, and I think that's probably what it is.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't work for the security service.
No, it's on record.
It's on record, is it? Yeah. It's on record. I'm not here to challenge what these guys say. I mean, they were there, I wasn't. But certainly from the policing point of view, and I'll speak for police and not others, that's not what we do. We're going out, we're trying to work with communities, we're trying to understand what the community's needs are, and I don't think we'll ever get that if we start making them threats and those kind of things. I think we've got to go in a supportive way and actually try and understand the community. And, as a police officer, the day I joined, you walk down the street in uniform, people come up to you and tell you things. That's what policing's about. People tell you things in the community. And I go back and I think, well, they tell me this and they've told me that, and if I put that together, that might mean that over there. That's what policing is. Yeah, and this is what policing is about. So we still do that. It's no different. It's very, very simple. The communities tell us things, and we then have a duty to respond to it. So, we need you to tell us things, and we will then respond and work with you to try and make your communities and all the communities safer.
Okay, I'll come to you. I wouldn't give this guy a chance. He had his hand up for too long. Adam Matan, take it away. I'll come to you, Mohammed, and Mohammed at the back.
I just want to make a quick comment regarding the arrest that has been made. The police have done a wonderful job, in my eyes, to be honest. They have arrested those criminals, if they were criminals. And they are same as any other criminals. It doesn't matter whether they're Somalis or non-Somalis. If they're doing something wrong, something against the law, they should be arrested, and they should pay the price and face the consequences of their actions. However, how they conduct the arrest was wrong, in my eyes. They have consulted with the community, ask us what our feedbacks are, how you want us to contribute to the situation. But you have arrested those individuals, and you're arrested based on because you've seen this money, this huge amount of money going back to Somalia, and you didn't know what it was for, what was it for. So he said, okay, fair enough, why don't we use the 24 days of terrorist act, so we can arrest them for 24 days, and ask them questions and investigate the situation. So while we keep them in the 24 days in there, and that gives a bad reputation to the community. It creates a whole atmosphere of hoo-ha, that the community is going a bit mad on authority, and also the authority shouldn't be
can I
doing.
interrupt? How much damage do you think that cost in our reputation as Somali community living in Britain when the police said these guys were linked with Al-Shabaab, money laundering and funding terrorist organization? How much damage do you think that is done to us?
I'll tell you the damage. I was on a train on my way here, and there was this guy and this lady sitting next to me. I didn't know what they were saying. They were saying, oh, the Somalis are getting a bit tough nowadays. And I looked around and they said, oh, they've been 7 arrested for terrorist acts. So that's how much it's affecting us. Okay. How it's tourism on London Underground. So that's how bad it is. So okay, this situation has happened. There's nothing we can do about it. But can we improve that in the future? Can we improve that in the future? And can you give the community a guarantee that will not happen in the future? And those individuals, and also you will distribute a public press release stating those individuals were arrested for money laundering. And our initial thoughts of a terrorist arrest was wrong, and we apologize to the community. If that can be done, I think we can rebuild that reputation, we can build that relationship back.
Okay, can I do with that point?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I think there's a lot of points there I would agree with. I think the first thing is that we don't just go out to arrest people for the terrorism just because we think it's better for us and we can keep them in custody longer. I can tell you now that the officers who investigated that had evidence to lead them to believe that they were involved in certain acts, and I think as such they're obliged to act accordingly. Now, often people will be arrested for one thing and charged with something else. That's not limited to terrorism in itself. It's a whole range of crimes where you get arrested for one thing, but once all the investigation's done, once that person's had their chance to have their say as well, and that's very important, that puts a different perspective on things. You then have to look at what evidence do we actually have, and what, if any, charges are there that can be laid against these individuals. That doesn't mean to say your original assessment and your original decision making was wrong. It could still be right. And often people can be charged with one thing and other matters can still be investigated and ongoing as well. So can I sit here and give you a guarantee that those kind of things won't happen again? No, I can't. Because I think I'd be foolish if I did, and B, because people will still be arrested for matters and charged with something else. That's the way that the legal system in this country works. We have to have reasonable grounds in the first place, and if any of those guys think that they were arrested unlawfully in the first place, then they have an opportunity to actually take action against the police for doing those things. So that's where the recourse would come. The issue around 7 people being charged, I think, has already gone out to the press, that 7 people have been charged under money laundering legislation. And there's certainly been nothing further around terrorism. What we would never normally say, though, is that, okay, we arrested them for that, we've charged them with that, but actually we were wrong in the first place. If it was that blatant, then yes, I think we would say it. But I think sometimes these things aren't that clear. And there might be evidence to suggest something has happened, but then having enough evidence to charge somebody is a different matter altogether. So there's a lot of issues here, I think, about the British legal system and the standards of proof and the standard of evidence that's required. Okay. But I do understand the point you're making.
Okay, guys, because we're running out of time, what I'll do is we have only 5 minutes left, so I'll give you 4 of you opportunity to put your point across. You already have the microphone, so take it away. Yeah, very short, very limited.
Yeah, can I just ask you that, it seems to be that the Muslim community in Britain has been, one of you said that a Muslim, people will say, people get the shock that it had been, Muslims have got bad reputation. Could you please send a message to your officers that, for example, when Muslim men traveling from the airport or coming in, if you call that Ahmed or Muhammad or Ali, you'll be harassed because they think that you might be tourism. What I'm trying to say to you that your officers, unless they have a proof that this guy or he's got involved with the tourism.
Do you think you've been targeted if you're traveling because your name is Muslim?
Because if your name is Muhammad or Ali or yeah.
Okay. Just by your name, not necessarily if you're carrying anything.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Okay. That's the message I'm sending that.
Okay, thank you very much. This Muhammad and Sheikh, and then we end it there. Okay, go ahead, Ma'in. Take it.
Right. And it looks like this action, what happened in 1st of May, was exactly action replay, what happened in Minnesota about a year and a half ago. And it led to a lot of consequences with the community in North America. There was like, as my, the German asked you the first question earlier, it led to account closures, some remittances is being actually become out of business and all that. And, you were saying earlier, if it's legitimate and legitimate, you say 3 times legitimate. And what we worried is, when you take action as, the law enforcers, you stigmatize and there will be a stain on that, the industry. And it will become slowly illegitimate, your actions will make so many things to illegitimize. And we thought it was like exactly action replay started some 2 females fundraising and the money goes out and similar things, and we just worried same things will happen again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
If you could deal those 2 questions, and then we give this to and that brother, and then we
okay. Just very quickly on that point, I think that there are still issues about terrorist fundraising, and it's not just limited to the Somali terrorists like Shabaab, but it's the number of others across London who are engaged in fundraising. And I think all communities have got to think about how they actually provide money to charities and send money back home. And I talk about legitimate. I think, yes, it does need to be done through legitimate means, and I'm sure you know that better than I do. But also, you've got to look at charities and collections and all these kind of issues, and how they actually go around within your communities collecting. Are they legitimate collections? Are they done properly? Who has checked out the collecting tin on certain venues? You've got to actually look at these and say, are we as a community being robust about it ourselves? So I think some of the onus must come back to yourselves a little bit. I don't see this going the same way as America at all. I really don't. I think we've had a number of guys arrested for money laundering. They're not able to account for the monies that they've got. And I would say the vast majority of people, and it's probably people in this room, send money home, send money to friends, and I don't see any reason why that should be impeded or stopped. I think that needs to continue. It's part of your community, and certainly we wouldn't seek to be interfering with that in any way. I think for your own reassurance, you just need to look and make sure that as a community you're doing that through reliable, sensible, legitimate processes. And that's all I'd say to you on that subject. I forget the point the gentleman made, sorry, I'll get distracted very quickly.
He said that if you're travelling...
right, yes,
yeah,
the travelling issue. Yeah, I'm not a Muslim, I've not had the experiences that you're talking about. I've no doubt on certain occasions things like that would have happened, but, at the end, it's about the individual officer would have to justify why he or she has made that decision to stop you, to challenge you, to question you. And you're entitled to ask the reasons as well, as I'm sure, various people do. But there is legislation there. They have to work within what the law says and within the spirit of the law, and to actually give an explanation. I don't know whether you're disproportionately affected or not.
Okay, and I just been told even we cannot take Mohammed's question because we just run out of time. We just run out of time. I've been told to stop it. I do apologize, guys. Mark, thank you very much. You and your offices. You heard a member of the communities, our community here, and their concerns. Thanks for coming.
Thank you all very much.
As you heard it, we're willing to work with you. The chairman himself said that, and everyone else said that we're willing to work with you to prevent any kind of terrorism in this country, and we're grateful to the nation hosts in this country, the facility they give it to us. Can I just say thank you very much, and I do apologize if we run out of time, and I'm grateful to Engineer Ahmed oo barnaamijkan suurtageliyey iyo Xamduuni Abdallah oo soo saaraha barnaamijka ahaa, Aadan AJ iyo Cabdiqani oo technicianka ahaa, Mark iyo everyone else. Thank you very much. Until next week, inshallah ta'ala. Cabdixafiid Maxamuud taqwada Ilaahay midnii. Wasalaamu calaykum. We're done.
We're done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I will take your question outside if you want to ask me the question outside. I don't mind. I know you were desperate to ask another question.
I mean,